Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Hem Kaur Sara. And on the show today, another horrific school shooting incident in the United States, Wisconsin. 3 killed, 6 others injured after a 17-year-old girl, a student of the same school, opened fire in Madison. The shooter was also found dead when the officers arrived on the scene, further raising alarm over the gun epidemic in America. We will bring you the latest on this on the show today.
Also on World DNA, in Canada, massive infighting has gripped the Trudeau government. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland has unexpectedly resigned, saying her ideologies no longer align with Prime Minister Trudeau's. We will get you the latest from Canada right here on World DNA. Let's get started with the headlines first.
Islamic State group planning mass prison break to free thousands of its fighters detained in Syria, warns head of Iraq's National Security Service.
Syrian rebel factions to be disbanded and their fighters to join regular army units, says Abu Muhammad al-Golani, leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group.
We're going to be talking. We'll be talking to President Putin, and we'll be talking to the representatives, Zelensky and representatives from Ukraine. We got to stop it. It's carnage.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump says he would speak to the leaders of Ukraine and Russia to end the war as President Putin lauds Russian army's successes on the ground.
One teacher and a student killed after another student opens fire at a school in United States, Wisconsin. Shooter also found dead.
India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to meet Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi tomorrow in Beijing for special representatives meeting to discuss border issues.
Delhi's air quality remains in severe category. Schools to operate in hybrid mode as stage 4 of anti-pollution restrictions come into effect.
New Zealand registered their joint biggest win as they beat England by 423 runs in the third and the final test. The victory gives a perfect farewell to pacer Tim Southee, who ends his 16-year test career.
And our top focus, Canada. Justin Trudeau's government is in trouble. A massive infighting has erupted.
Right, and Canada's Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland has unexpectedly resigned. She also holds the post of the Finance Minister. She says that she is no longer on the same page with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about the best path forward for Canada. She made this big announcement just a little while ago, before she was due to present a fall economic update to the Parliament. This document is widely expected to show the Liberal government had run up a much larger 2023-24 budget deficit than planned.
Now, Freeland, seen as one of Trudeau's closest allies in cabinet, reveals that she was offered another post by Trudeau. In her resignation letter, she says that Canada today faces a grave challenge. Freeland's announcement also follows news that Housing Minister Sean Fraser will not seek re-election. Taking another potshot at the Canadian Prime Minister, Freeland said that Donald Trump's administration is pursuing a policy of aggressive economic nationalism, including a threat of 25% tariffs. She urged that the country should take that threat extremely seriously.
Trump's return to power signals a turbulent chapter for North America and beyond. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 25% tariff on all Canadian imports on his first day back in the White House unless his border concerns are addressed.
Trudeau flew to Florida on the 29th of November to have dinner with President-elect Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago club after Trump threatened to impose sweeping tariffs on Canadian products. But instead of getting any reprieve, Trump called him Governor Trudeau. And this came just days after Trump had said that Canada should become the 51st state of the US, a statement which drew wide criticism in Canada, raising apprehensions over Trump's moves.
About 60% of US crude oil imports are from Canada, 85% of US electricity imports as well. Ontario's premier has threatened to cut off power supply to the United States if Trump imposes the proposed tariffs. Now to discuss this further, we are being joined by Terry Milewski, live from Ottawa, Canada. He's a journalist and the author of Blood for Blood, 50 Years of Global Khalistan Project. So thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Now let's get right into it. Canadian Deputy Prime Minister has quit the post and also happens to be a former close ally of Trudeau, and has said that in fact, there have been a lot of disagreements in the past few weeks. How do you assess the reasons for these emerging cracks within the Trudeau government?
Well, there are the reasons that they want us to know about and the reasons that they don't want us to know about. And in the latter category, I think that it's relevant, although you don't see it much mentioned, that because of Mr. Trudeau's decline in the polls, his shaky future, to put it mildly, because of that, the Liberals have been looking around for somebody else to save their jobs after the next election, because the polls say they might lose them if they run with Trudeau. And so Trudeau and the Liberal Party, they've been talking to a gentleman named Mark Carney, who, as you may know, was previously the governor of the Bank of Canada, then the governor of the Bank of England. He's very highly regarded. And so he was talking to Carney about kind of advising and taking over economic policy while cutting the Minister of Finance out of it. So there's that. That's the underground tension between the two. Wait a minute. She got a feeling that he didn't have confidence in her. Then there was the above ground differences over what she is describing in her very cutting resignation letter as Trudeau's tendency for his penchant for costly political gimmicks. He wanted to send, little checks out to taxpayers at Christmas time. Maybe that make him feel better. Most people said, look, I'm not going to get rich on $250 checks. Why don't you just cut my taxes? It didn't work. She didn't like it. And she's trying to sell the idea that Canada, facing the tariffs that Mr. Trump has promised, needs to keep its powder dry and save a little money because things are going to get rough.
Mr. Milewski, I just want to go to a couple of statements from that resignation letter, because it's rarely that you see a letter which is worded in such detail, talking about things that happened behind doors. Quickly, just going over it, she said that they are at great odds with Trudeau over the past weeks, and that she mentioned that the Liberals need to eschew political gimmicks, something that you briefly mentioned as of now in your first response. Canadian people see through it when they spend for the people and when the government spends for themselves. And also mentioned that there is a great danger over the reasons for the differences regarding Trump's, proposed tariffs. Can you give us a little more detail about what really has been going on within the government, the Liberal government?
Well, we do have some experience because the first time that Mr. Trump was in the White House, he tried this tariff routine, threatened big, actually brought in less tariffs than he had promised. There was aluminum, there was steel. After about a year, Canada was able to roll them back. They weren't 25%. So his bark was worse than his bite. And of course, Canadians are hoping that that will hold true again. Secondly, there's a sort of a ransom demand that the tariffs won't be so bad anyway if the Canadians tighten up the border to keep out criminals, to keep out drugs. And Canada has already agreed to do that. They said, okay, they've put out an economic statement today, as you know, and part of the detail is that they're going to spend $1.5 billion to tighten up the border. They'll have helicopters, they'll have dogs. It's going to look great on TV to try to persuade Mr. Trump. You see, we've done just what you wanted. Now, about those tariffs, can we forget those, please? we're not there yet. I'm getting way ahead of, we can't predict what Trump is going to do. But Chrystia Freeland's point in her letter is that we've got to be serious. We've got to be ready in case he means it, in case he does bring in a 25% tariff. We can't be sitting here and then start figuring out what we're going to do. We've got to start now, and you've got to take it seriously.
Right. So also, just to expand on that, report suggests that 60 Liberal MPs will sign a letter asking Trudeau to resign. The revolt is clearly growing. That being said, what are the chances that Trudeau will resign or not?
Well, personally, I think they're quite high. I think that it's very hard to come back from this, that his time is up. Look, in Canadian politics, it's pretty unusual to go a full 10 years. Prime Minister Chrétien didn't, Prime Minister Mulroney didn't, Prime Minister Harper, all the recent prime ministers that have any longevity at all, they just don't seem to be able to make it to 10 years. Canadians get tired of them. It's that simple. There is a tide in politics, and your time is, when you come in and your hair is all fluffy and the girls are chasing you through airports, then Trudeau looked pretty good. But now his time is up. Canadians are just tired of him. I think that they're estimating tonight about our time, about 60 Liberals are going to sign a letter calling on Trudeau to resign. I think that's going to rise. Once they get to 75, 76, pretty soon they'll have a majority. There are only 153 Liberals in the House of Commons. So I think that he's done for. I think the pollsters now will find that he's dropping like a stone. Already last time I checked, he's 20 points, more than that, in some polls behind the Conservatives. Most of the polls are saying that if there were an election tomorrow, it would be a Conservative landslide and Trudeau will be finished. Well, he's got to have an election sometime in the next year, so he's toast.
Mr. Milewski, never holding back any words. Always a pleasure speaking with you and hearing your insights. Thank you so much for joining in on World DNA. And of course, all those jabs that have come in from the US side, Governor Trudeau from Trump, or Elon Musk tweeting out that Trudeau will be gone soon. Of course, it doesn't seem to be reflecting well on Trudeau at the moment. Thank you so much for joining us, and there'll be lots more to discuss going forward.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift our focus now. 3 people dead after a student opened fire at a school in the northern U.S. state of Wisconsin.
It's always unfortunate hearing such news and seeing things happen like this. Once again, the police in state capital Madison said that a teacher and a teenage student died in the shooting, while the suspect was later found dead at the scene.
Now, according to police, at least 6 other people were wounded at the Abundant Life Christian School. That's a private religious school for children. 2 students were being treated for life-threatening injuries, while 4 others were in hospital in a non-critical condition. Police have said that a handgun was recovered at the scene, adding that the suspect's family was cooperating with the police investigation. While some reports identified the shooter as a female, the police did not confirm the exact age or gender of the suspect.
To be honest with you, I'm feeling a little dismayed now. I'm so close to Christmas. Every child, every person in that building is a victim and will be a victim forever. And these types of trauma don't just go away. And we need to figure out and try to piece together what exactly happened. And right now, my heart is heavy for my community.
US President Joe Biden condemned the shooting as shocking and unconscionable, saying the incident underscored yet again the need for tighter gun laws. Biden's statement added that we need Congress to act now.
Now, the violence is the latest in a long line of school shootings in the United States, where guns outnumber people and attempts to restrict access to firearms face perennial political deadlock. For more on this, a correspondent, Susan Tehrani, has sent us this report. Listen to this.
Police are still gathering information about the victims and this shooter. After that fatal school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin, the suspect, a female student, was found dead on the scene, and police are still looking to determine a motive, and the suspect's family is cooperating with investigators. The shooting marks the 83rd school shooting in 2024 alone, surpassing 2023 for the most shootings in 1 year. This is since 2008. President Joe Biden has been briefed on the shooting, and the White House has said that federal aid and support will be granted to the victims and those affected. There will be a candlelight vigil held at the Wisconsin State Capitol in Madison on Tuesday at 6 p.m. local time. Susan Tefrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, in the US, there is a growing concern over a series of mysterious drone sightings.
The Biden administration is saying it is probing the sightings, but from mystery, these drones are now becoming a national security issue. Lawmakers from Biden's party also want clear answers from the White House. The Trump team has proposed an Iron Dome to protect American skies from the drone menace. Here's a report. Take a look.
It's not a bird. It's not a plane. It's a drone. And it's causing alarm across America. From the mystery, it's now turned into a growing frustration among Americans.
It's hard to really describe it. I see the lights, the red and green, blinking on and off. They're pretty high. Some of them are low.
I think maybe it's a helicopter. No, it's not a helicopter. Then suddenly it gets closer and it's hovering right over the trees, and it looks like, I guess, an enormous drone? I'm not even sure what it... I've never seen anything like it. It's just a drone on steroids.
Drones have been observed flying over residential neighborhoods, restricted areas, and critical infrastructure. Since the first sightings in New Jersey in mid-November, the drones have spread to at least 6 states: New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Virginia. The unanswered question of who is behind these flights and their intentions is causing alarm. Security experts argue that in an era when drones have revolutionized warfare, ignoring the risks could leave the US dangerously vulnerable. The Biden administration is trying to downplay these incidents.
We have not seen any foreign, we know of no foreign involvement with respect to the sightings in the Northeast, and we are vigilant in investigating this matter, the Department of Homeland Security, with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the lead.
Despite official claims that most sightings involve manned aircraft, the US lawmakers from both Republican and Democrats are expressing mounting frustration at the government's lack of transparency.
For weeks, we've asked for the truth and action to mitigate any and all threats to people and property. Now, we are demanding it.
People who have questions about these drones should not have to shake an 8-ball to get an answer. They want real answers, and the Robin can supply those answers, and that's why we want them here. So this is a broader and better response to the technology than we now have, and we need them deployed.
Trump's team proposes an ambitious Iron Dome for America, drawing inspiration from Israel's missile defense system. This comprehensive approach would extend beyond traditional missile threats to include drone-specific countermeasures, recognizing the evolving nature of aerial warfare. The unresolved questions surrounding these drone operations, their origin, operators, and potential objectives create a climate of uncertainty that threatens national security. Each unexplained flight represents a potential breach in America's defensive infrastructure. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, Abu Muhammad al-Golani, who is the leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group that toppled the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime, has said that rebel factions in the war-torn country would be disbanded.
and their fighters would join regular army units. Now, as Gulani talked about the way forward for Syria, he also said that the international sanctions against Damascus must be lifted if refugees displaced by the war are to return. Now, Syria has been under strict sanctions by the US and the European Union and others for years as a result of President Bashar al-Assad's brutal response to what began as an anti-government protest back in 2011, leading to a civil war in the country and later spiraled out of control. Now, the UN envoy to Syria, Geir Pedersen, told reporters in Damascus that setting Syria back on track after the past few tumultuous weeks will be helped by a speedy relief of sanctions.
Meanwhile, US President-elect Donald Trump said US ally Turkey will hold the key to what happens next in Syria. He called the ouster of al-Assad as an unfriendly takeover by Turkey as he addressed the conflict at a news conference.
Assad fled to Russia after a lightning offensive spearheaded by HTS, which wrestled city after city from his control until the rebels reached the Syrian capital Damascus. In his defense, al-Assad said that he only left once Damascus had fallen and denounced the new leaders as terrorists. Trump called al-Assad a butcher.
Well, nobody knows what the final outcome is going to be in the region. You know, nobody knows who really the final. I believe it's Turkey, and I think Turkey is very smart. He's a very smart guy, and he's very tough. But Turkey did an unfriendly takeover without a lot of lives being lost. I can say that Assad was a butcher. What he did to children.
Meanwhile, a lengthy convoy of Russian military vehicles was seen withdrawing from Latakia towards the Syrian city of Tartus, and the spokesperson for the political department of new transitional Syrian government, Obeda Arnaut, said that there is no reason for the deployment of Russian troops in Syria anymore. He called on Russia to reconsider its deployment in Syria and to initiate contacts with the new administration.
The West continues its outreach to the administration. Today, France will send a diplomatic mission to Damascus to retake possession of French real estate and make initial contact with the new authorities. So far, US and UK have confirmed contacts with HTS. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a confidence vote, spelling the effective end of his troubled government.
Now, the result has put Europe's biggest economy on the path to elections on the 23rd of February.
Scholz had called the vote, expecting to lose it weeks after his coalition collapsed. Now, 207 members expressed confidence in Scholz against 394 who did not, with 116 abstentions. Losing the vote was a procedural and necessary step, paving the way for official announcement for early elections. Now, Scholz has asked President to dissolve the legislature soon and ask voters to head back to the ballot box.
After more than 3 years at the helm, Scholz was plunged into crisis when his unruly three-party coalition collapsed on the 6th of November. This came after Scholz fired his finance minister.
66-year-old Scholz lags badly in the polls behind Conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz, who heads the Christian Democratic Union of ex-Chancellor Angela Merkel. The latest Bloomberg polling average says that the Conservative CDU-CSU alliance under Merz leads at around 31% support. The far-right AfD is second with about 18%, and Scholz's Social Democratic Party FSDP stands third at 17%. The Greens are fourth with 13%.
All right, and with that, it's time now to slip into a short break. But here's a wrap of all the climate stories which are making headlines across the globe. Take a look. Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
West African leaders from the regional group ECOWAS meet for a summit with 3 nation members led by military governments on the brink of quitting the bloc. Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger reaffirm as irreversible their decision to quit the group.
Stop killing women! Stop killing women!
Human rights groups condemn police action in Kenya after hundreds of activists held peaceful protests in the streets of Nairobi against the rise in femicide cases in the country. And 160 athletes, including 40 young women, gather in the Kimana Reserve for the Maasai Olympics. The event serves to replace the traditional Olamayo, a Maasai rite of passage that involves group lion hunting for young Maasai men to prove their skills, identify their leaders and attract girlfriends. World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION, World is One.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
Vielleicht nur als 5%.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with him, and I'm Shivan. Lots more on this side of the show as well. Let's start with the headlines.
India's union government likely to table One Nation, One Election bill in the parliament today. Both ruling BJP and main opposition Congress issued 3-line whip to its members to remain present in the House.
Delhi's air quality remains in severe category. Schools to operate in hybrid mode as stage 4 of anti-pollution restrictions come into effect.
Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense.
President-elect Donald Trump says U.S. military should tell the American public about the truth about recent drone sightings in several states.
A New York judge rules against bid by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump to have his conviction in the hush money payments case thrown out on immunity grounds.
SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son announces a $100 billion investment in the United States over the next 4 years. The investment comes as part of Son's growing confidence in the U.S. economy under President-elect Donald Trump.
New Zealand registered their joint biggest win as they beat England by 423 runs in the third and final test. The victory gives a perfect farewell to pacer Tim Southey, who ends his 16-year test career.
As the French territory Mayotte deals with the aftermath of devastating cyclone, France's President Emmanuel Macron has said that he will soon visit the archipelago, where hundreds are feared dead.
Macron has declared the cyclone a national catastrophe, announcing he will visit Mayotte in the coming days. As rescuers race to reach the survivors, images show scenes of devastation, with homes reduced to piles of rubble.
Now, this was the most destructive cyclone to hit the region in 90 years. French authorities are bracing for the death toll to touch hundreds and perhaps even thousands.
French authorities say they're bracing for hundreds and perhaps even thousands of dead. But there may never be a full accounting of the death toll because many of the migrants who live on the islands are undocumented, and also because of local Muslim traditions which require rapid burials when people die.
Now, as per the health minister, the cyclone left health services in tatters, with the main hospital extremely damaged and health centres knocked out of operation. Cyclone Chido caused major damage to Mayotte's airport. It also cut off electricity, water and communication links when it barreled down.
Now, the cyclone was picking winds of at least 226 kilometers per hour when it slammed into Mayotte, which lies at least at the east of Mozambique. The cyclone's impact isn't limited to this area alone. Comoros experienced some damage, and cyclone then made landfall in Mozambique, bringing heavy rain and gale force winds.
The cyclone has claimed at least 3 lives in Mozambique, injured dozens others. Drone footage shows damaged houses and flattened vegetation. Millions across the region remain at risk of floods and further damage. And India's national capital has re-implemented stage 4 of the anti-pollution restrictions as the air quality index continues to be in the severe category.
The average AQI reached 421 at 7 a.m. today. The subcommittee of the Commission for Air Quality Management called for an emergency meeting yesterday. In the order released after the meeting, the subcommittee cited the Supreme Court's directive to the Commission to implement GRAP Stage 3 measures if AQI breaches the 350 mark and GRAP Stage 4 measures if it breaches the 400 mark.
AQI was recorded at 399 at 9 p.m. last night and 401 at 10 p.m. Now, the restrictions under Stage 4 include a ban on all construction and demolition activities, including public projects such as highways and flyovers, and on the entry of trucks carrying non-essential goods into Delhi.
Also, hybrid learning, combining online and offline modes, has been made mandatory for students in Delhi and districts like Gurugram, Faridabad, Ghaziabad and Gautam Budh Nagar, allowing parents and students to opt for online learning where feasible. Well, the countdown is well and truly on for what will potentially be the biggest gathering of humanity on the planet ever.
450 million people are expected to visit the Mahakumbh Mela in Prayagraj starting from the 13th of January. It will go on till Mahashivratri on the 26th of February.
Preparations are on at a scale rarely seen before anywhere in the world. The budget layout for the event is 3 times that of the last Kumbh Mela in Prayagraj in 2012.
Seers and ascetics from multiple denominations have started raising their religious flags, signaling their arrival in the Juna Akhada as one of the most prominent and ancient akhadas, loosely translated as a religious school. Now, the Naga Sadhus, smeared in ash, are another unique group known for their fearless and ascetic lifestyle. They pride themselves as spiritual army with expertise in weaponry and intense devotion. Over 15 state government departments are involved in over 500 projects around the Kumbh. 2 Indian institutes of management have been roped in. Elaborate preparations are in place from medical facilities to added conveniences for bathing. 35 existing and permanent ghats or bathing banks have been spruced up and 9 new ones have been constructed. The event has been geared to be free of single-use plastic. The National Disaster Response Force has been roped in for safety arrangements.
Police personnel have been brought in from Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra. Big efforts have been made to streamline travel as well as security measures around the Kumbh Mela. A notable digital presence is a big feature as well. Extensive digitization moves are in place, giving the Kumbh this time a high-tech feel. Experts stationed at a central control hub are monitoring drone activities with equipment that can neutralize any suspicious UAVs mid-air.
Prime Minister Modi was in Prayagraj last week to oversee the preparations. He also inaugurated several development projects that will benefit Prayagraj city infrastructure as a whole. Multiple temple corridors have also been constructed. Less than a month now before the Mela begins, officially, activity heats up. Businesses are being urged to take immediate action to address growing climate risks, according to the World Economic Forum.
Climate hazards such as extreme heat could cause billions in losses, and our next report explores the financial risks and opportunities businesses face as they navigate the evolving climate landscape. Take a look.
The World Economic Forum warns that businesses must act swiftly to address climate risks, or they could face significant financial losses. By 2035, climate hazards like extreme heat could cause up to $610 billion in annual asset losses for listed companies. with sectors such as telecommunications, utilities, and energy being particularly vulnerable. Companies that fail to decarbonize could see their earnings cut by as much as 50% by 2030, driven by stricter climate regulations and carbon pricing. The WEF urges businesses to take immediate steps to build resilience and mitigate risks to safeguard their financial health. The green energy market presents a massive growth opportunity. Set to grow from $5 trillion in 2024 to $14 trillion by 2030. Early movers in sustainable solutions and climate adaptation will gain significant competitive advantages. Key sectors such as alternative energy, sustainable transport, and sustainable consumer products are expected to lead this growth, with alternative energy alone accounting for 49% of the market share. Investing in these areas now offers businesses the chance to capitalize on high-growth markets while addressing climate challenges. Investing in climate adaptation and resilience is not just about risk mitigation, it's also about generating tangible returns. According to research from the Alliance of CEO Climate Leaders, every dollar spent on adaptation could yield up to $19 in avoided losses. This highlights the potential for businesses to not only protect their operations but also enhance long-term value. By strategically addressing climate-related risks and embracing decarbonization, companies can position themselves for growth while contributing to environmental sustainability. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
And Britain's workforce is facing a long-term decline driven by rising ill health and an aging population.
Even with potential improvements in healthcare, experts warn that reversing this trend may be difficult. Here's more on how illness is impacting the UK economy and its job market. Take a look.
Britain's workforce participation is set to fall to a record low in the coming decades, driven by an aging population and rising levels of long-term illness. The Office for Budget Responsibility projects that by the 2060s, just 61.8% of those over 16 will be in work or looking for a job, the lowest rate on record. This decline breaks a decades-long trend where workforce participation hovered between 62% and 63% since the 1970s. Health-related inactivity is a major factor, with nearly 2.8 million people currently too sick to work. Rising ill health is keeping millions out of the UK workforce. The number of working-age Britons inactive due to long-term illness has increased to 6.6%, up from 5% in 2019. Mental health conditions and chronic pain are driving these numbers, with 66% of health-related benefit claimants classified as unable to work. Since the pandemic, 1.6 million have started claiming sickness benefits with no requirement to seek employment. The Institute for Fiscal Studies warns that achieving the government's 80% employment target will be difficult without reversing this health crisis. The government's strategy to boost the economy by reducing NHS waiting lists may not yield the expected results. The OBR states that even significant health improvements will have a limited effect on workforce participation. Their analysis shows only a 28% chance that a working-age person in poor health will rejoin the labour force if they recover. Meanwhile, healthy life expectancy has fallen by 1.7 years for men and 1.9 years for women since the pandemic. The UK's ageing population and rising illness rates suggest that workforce participation will continue to decline, posing long-term challenges for the economy. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
All right, over to technology next. In an alarming new trend, cyber criminals are increasingly targeting popular YouTube creators with fake brand collaboration offers to spread malwares.
According to cybersecurity firm CloudSec, the malware is often disguised as legitimate documents such as contracts or promotional materials. They're delivered through password-protected files hosted on platforms like OneDrive to evade detection and detection. Once the access is gained, the malware installs itself on the victim's systems, often stealing sensitive data like login credentials, financial details, and intellectual property, or granting remote access to attackers. Experts urge YouTubers and online influencers to be cautious of unsolicited emails and attachments as these attacks become more sophisticated.
Amnesty International has revealed that Serbia used Israeli surveillance technology to spy on journalists and activists. According to a report, Serbian authorities installed homegrown spywares called Novi Spy on mobile phones after using devices from Israeli company Celebrite to unlock them. The spyware then secretly took screenshots, copied contacts and uploaded them to a government server. Amnesty's findings include testimonies from activists who noticed suspicious activity on their own phones after meetings with Serbian officials. Celebrite, which provides phone cracking technology to law enforcement, said it is investigating the allegations.
South Korea is planning to invest $1.9 billion next year to develop technologies aimed at tackling climate change. The funding will support renewable energy innovations like next-gen solar batteries, floating wind power, and hydrogen systems. It also includes advancements in carbon neutrality technology such as next-gen nuclear power. This investment is part of South Korea's 10-year plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030 and reach carbon neutrality by 2050. The government also plans to assess climate change impact on ecosystems and food production as part of its strategy to achieve carbon neutrality across multiple industries.